Welcome, viewers. Welcome, listeners. This is Random Thoughts from Random Geeks. We are your randomly generated geeks. I am BK Dub, aka Wheeler. To the side of me is Shellbot, aka Shelly Shellbot, and below me is Duffy of the DevOps Life. How you guys doing?
Doing all right. How you doing?
Good, good.
Pre- Pretty good. I just found out Showbot has an additional nickname that is never going away. So
Yeah, so did I. That's interesting. Apparently,
Yeah.
I'm a turtle. I don't,
Exactly.
yeah.
And fun fact about all of us here, one of us here has never been to space, and also the other two of us too. So, anyways, let's get going. I believe Shelb has the topic of the day for us. Or
hold on.
topic.
I feel like that's a not a true fact. I have definitely played No Man's Sky, and it is essentially like being in space. So
Yeah. I've actually played several space sim games where I've been in space as well. So,
I've
okay,
seen
so
Star
maybe
Wars.
maybe one of us has not been in space is the actual fact.
is the actual.
Yeah.
There you go. I'm
Yeah.
willing to accept that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I've seen Star Wars. It's the closest I've been to space.
Okay.
I'm a
cool.
space cadet. That's about it. So okay, I've got a couple that I might want to throw out at you. So let's play a game. Do we want to go with topic A or topic B?
Well, there is the letter B in my name and my handle, so I'm gonna choose A.
Okay.
Wait, you're going that direction? I totally thought you were going to pick B because you have B in your name.
Well, yeah, but why would I do that?
Well, I have none of those letters in any of my stuff, so let's go A.
All right. Well, would you like me to give you before you make your decisions? I'll make it a little bit more transparent. Would you like me to give you at least a hint of what the two are?
Nah.
Is one of them about chimichangas and tacos?
Ooh, that would have been a good topic, but no,
Oh, darn.
no. So
I say you just go for it.
just go for it. Okay. So honestly, Wheeler actually spurred this one on this week.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
me too.
Wheeler, you sent us an article earlier in the week, and I'll have to bring it up. I actually didn't bring it up, and shame on me. But it was about a recruiter, or actually a developer running an experiment and trying to see how many interviews he could get on a certain resume, and just out of sheer chance, he was, falsifying his resume. So in all that fun stuff, let's deal with jobs and how the world in jobs are changing. Now, dealing with the resume and that sort of thing, have either of you heard of the Great Resignation?
Yes.
Yes. Well, I've heard that term used recently. I'm pretty confident I know what it is, and what they are referring to, but I've not actually looked it up, to be fair.
So, in dealing with it, it seems that in the year 2021, the resignation rates for actually people in our age groups are like skyrocketing, particularly because people are realizing they don't have to work for major corporations. So my question to you guys, do you really think that you have to keep working for major corporations, or do you think that you would be willing, able, and have the want to step out on your own?
I think so. the thing is, I think the pandemic itself helped people to realize things and realize some of the power they had that they've always
Absolutely.
had.
Absolutely.
Most jobs can be done from home. It's always been a
Absolutely.
fact. There is some merit and some value depending on the job or the position, things like that. For positions that are especially technology related or office manager related, if you're a doctor or something and you have to
Oh, of
kind of have
course.
hands on a patient, like there's limited stuff you can do virtually, right?
Yeah.
But technology, like finances, your accountant, stuff like that, it's like you people have always had the power. It's just there's not been enough push or motivation to force businesses to give people flexibility like they've always wanted. Like I think some people didn't even realize they wanted the flexibility they got until they got it, and now they don't want to go back. And so, like I said at the start, like I'm already sure I knew what it was, but I didn't look it up because of that. But I think people are just realizing now that it's like, hey, I have a skill that is valuable. There is more of a demand than there is a supply at a lot of skill positions, and it's
Mhm.
not just someone like in our field we're technologists, so it's not just someone who's like high up like architect level. Like we're
Right.
talking like it's hard to find even entry level people, or people who are slightly above entry level that you could train,
Right.
and so a lot of businesses and stuff are starting to take people on the janitorial staff and train them up in skilled positions.
Mhm.
So that being said, I absolutely have no problem um, going off on my own should I find something I'm passionate about pursuing. I think it's more so a individual's perspective, right? Like, do you have something you want to go in business on your own for? Like, do you have an idea? Do you have a business model or something you could
Sure.
do? Or the flip side, maybe more so for me, um, I don't feel, and being a technologist, I've never felt this way, but I don't feel stuck where I am. Like, if
Mhm.
I ever feel like, I'm not getting either fair pay, fair opportunity, enjoying what I'm doing, anything like that, I can just go to another company because again, supply and demand. So
Well,
I think there's going to be a lot more of that.
it's a funny thing that you bring up fair pay and fair opportunity in that as well. So there's another portion of the overarching topic of this, and that's transparency in the HR field, so to speak. And that's, should companies be more transparent to their employees? Should they allow their employees to talk to each other about their compensation packages? Won't name names, but the day that this was being recorded, there's an article that a very large tech company has put out a press release that they're going to allow this. Um,
Well,
I
I'd have to read that article, and I'd also be curious to hear what Wheeler has to say because we've had chats about this before
yeah,
offline. Um, Wherever I work, um, we are all in the U.S., so rules are definitely different, but it's always discouraged to talk about pay. But
exactly.
they can't do anything to you if you do talk about pay, and it actually empowers people to have that discussion. I think the biggest thing is when discussing pay, you have to be careful and have a degree of emotional intelligence when you discuss pay,
Hmm.
because if someone is in the same position as you, similar level, in seniority or position or expectations, responsibilities, etc., but they're making 10, 20,000 less, or they have more experience, they're making less, or you're making less, the intention's never to hurt someone or hold it over their head, hopefully. But you definitely have to have some emotional intelligence if you're going to talk about it, but you have to talk about it. because otherwise, how do you know what the market price is? Like someone can say, "Oh yeah, I got a job for $180,000 or $280,000 or $380,000 a year." Like insert price here, right? But how realistic is that? Like, and how many other people are getting it? You know, is it just that it was a niche opportunity, or is that really what the market value is?
So,
What do you
I don't
think,
know
Wheeler?
Well,
yeah, Wheeler, you're awful quiet, which is unusual.
well, because
Kinda
I was
scary.
waiting for you guys to finish your thoughts. There's a lot of thoughts coming out. So let's see. I'm bringing this all the way back to the beginning of the work, the people, employees realizing that they can be remote because of their demands and stuff like this, and the fact that a lot of companies kind of want people in the office. I think a lot of that falls back to an old school mentality of if there's not butts in the seats, then there's no work being done. Just
Exactly.
like I was at one company, and the guy joked about it a lot, but usually, I was always one of the first ones there because I was like working early. And there's another guy that showed up, and we always left the office lights off because we just went with the light of our monitors. And then our manager would come in and turn the lights on. He's like, "You guys aren't getting any work done if the lights aren't on." So I mean, he was always joking, but that was kind of like an old school mentality. If butts in seats, lights are on, that's how you get work done, type of thing. And I think a lot of CEOs and those companies, they still have that mindset, and it's difficult to get them to switch because
Well, I mean,
even where I'm at now, last year during the pandemic when we worked remote almost the entire year, I've heard from others that people have talked about that was the company's most productive year, and yet they still want everybody in the office 5 days a week now. Even though
Oh,
when
that's
we were all
crazy.
remote,
that's
we were
insane.
super productive. Yeah. The Great Resignation is happening more than just the tech industry. It's happening everywhere. And
Yeah.
a
Absolutely.
lot of that is happening from people, when they got furloughed and stuff like that, they relook at their finances and they're like, you know what? If we tweak some of these things, we both don't have to work. I mean,
Yep,
we're doing it here in
absolutely.
my household. My wife didn't have to go back to work. We took our kid out of daycare. We're saving money because we're not spending money on daycare, and we're getting by just the same as we were when we were both working. So, you know, that kind of leads to a lot of that of the Great Resignation. People are understanding, hey, I don't have to eat out as often. Hey, I don't have to do this. I don't have to do that. We tweak some things, and suddenly only one of us needs to work.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
that's fueling a lot of it, and
your
Well,
and that's
and
lifestyle is
helping a lot of
completely
people.
different.
Yeah,
yeah.
and
Well,
then
and to that
go ahead.
point too, like a lot of people aren't having to go back to the office. Like to your point, so it's like by taking your kid out of daycare, you're saving a bunch of money, or you're saving a bunch of money now because like you don't need a second car or whatever it might be.
Yeah, we
But
went
some
down to one
people,
car.
yeah, and but some people are even saving even more money because the other big thing that's happening that we're seeing a trend of, or I'm seeing a trend of, is people from areas that cost more to live, like some parts of
Moving
California,
away.
some parts of New York, they're moving away, and because they can work
Mhm.
remote still, like they still have a remote capacity. So it's like, hey, I'm just going to move away. I'm still
Exactly.
making as much as I made in California or New York, which is always like everyone knows you get more there because cost of living's higher.
Yeah.
So that
And
actually brings up
there,
a. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say you save money having a lower cost of living, but your pay is still the same. So like you come
So,
out ahead.
so that actually brings up a funny argument point. I've seen a lot of articles about people arguing the point of if they do that, or because you're a remote worker, should you get paid the going rate of the worker or
Where
the
you
comparable
are.
worker of where you are versus where your job is located? To me, I
Um,
think it should be where your job's located. Because if you were to ever have to move, or you were to ever be promoted into a position where you are required to be in the office, you would be at a huge disadvantage at that point. Because then I don't believe the company would do the right thing to promote or to move your wages up. But that's
Yeah,
just
that's a tough one. I I think I think the big thing is like there should be a minimum standard of this position should make at least this much. But you definitely have to account for the area you're living in. And also sometimes depending on the position or role you're taking, it doesn't matter where I live. Like if it's like a CEO level type job, right? Like it doesn't matter where they live, they're going to make a certain dollar figure, a certain
well,
amount
yeah,
in compensation, right? Like but if you're like an associate getting out of college trying to get your career off the ground and stuff, that's a tough one. I think it kind of depends on the business and stuff, but I think you
right.
definitely have to take cost of living as a factor.
Well, of course, but I mean, your average white collar work, your average software developer, you know, we'll just say, living middle of the country, making 90,000 a year is not going to be able to survive in LA or the Silicon Valley. There's
Yeah.
just no way, you
Well,
know.
I guess the flip side to it is though too, like what is your home office? And if you have to move, is it your choice or are they forcing you to? Because in that case, like that should be negotiated up front. Like, and it's like, hey, if I'm working in LA, I'm not gonna like, hey, if I'm working here, this is what I want. Oh, you want me to move to LA? Well, then to
Right.
move to LA, I need a compensation package to
But of course,
match.
climates change, and you can't see what happens X time, down the road,
Oh yeah, but that's
as
why we
things get
have
promoted.
the great what was it you said at the beginning? Now I'm blanking.
Resignation.
The Great
Great
Resignation.
Resignation.
Because people
True.
were trying that. People were trying that. They're like, you know what? I actually have a boss, like someone who's actually up in my leadership chain, fairly high, who literally during COVID bought an RV and they just traveled the country. He was still working. He just used like hotspots or like Wi-Fi that was available, things like that, and he just traveled the country with his wife and kids, and they went and saw like some Tesla factories and the Grand Canyon and some national parks once they reopened, like some different stuff. And he was a very pro like in the
Oh,
office
oh.
type person, but understood that people could be beneficial working outside of the office as well. But kind of the stance now is working remote's still pretty good. you know, like I don't think he would force anyone back into the office or anything like that. Like there's definitely value there. But at the same time, he's like, yeah, we also kicked butt. Like he recognized everyone's hard work, and you know, we have that type of culture that you know your hard
Yeah.
work is rewarded. So I think it all kind of just depends.
A
So,
lot of it does depend on that, because like when I work remote, I have some mobile devices that I can use to test our application on and stuff like that. But there are certain devices that are like, point of sale devices and electronic payment devices that I have to be in the office to use because we have a limited number of them provided by our client. And we have a lab in which they're connected to, usually through
mhm.
a separate network and stuff like that. So there are times when where I am needed in the office in order to test on those devices, which kind of sucks if you're home and then like during your scrum you'll find out that there's a blocking issue on one of these devices and you're like, oh well, I guess I gotta go into the office now. but so that is kind of a bummer. But and talking about Shellbot's point of people working remote and how should they be compensated, I was talking with our HR person because I'm trying to help make it easier for her to recognize candidates for developer roles. But anyway, she would mention that they were doing an interview. Someone was in California and was expecting a California pay for a Florida job, and she's like, and it's not something we can
It's
feasibly
not
match because
sustainable.
the pay rates are so different between the two things and stuff like that. So I
Yeah.
mean,
Well, was it?
there's some sort of expectations that you have to set, and that's the other thing with remote working is People are like, hey, I can work remote and get a job anywhere in the country, but then they start demanding or start expecting the same type of pay as they're currently getting, and then finding out that not the country doesn't pay the same all around the country.
And it's also a free
Well,
market.
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
Well, and my question though, now I'm curious. Was a person wanting to work remote that was in California, or were they going to relocate?
I think they would have relocated if we would have presented them with a relocation package. They weren't going to relocate of their own free will.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was my thing. It's like, because if the assumption, because I think that's also happened now too.
Yeah.
Companies have opened their eyes more. Not that they were completely closed, but a lot of companies weren't as open to remote employees, like in different states, right?
yeah.
And now they're more open to that. So if you are going to hire someone remote and they live in one of those higher priced areas, you have to pay them that higher price.
Yeah.
But that also plays into taxes and all kinds of stuff too,
Yeah.
which gets kind of
Yeah,
crazy.
Yeah,
that's a
because
huge
even if your company's
issue.
located in one state, you still have to pay taxes of the state you're in. Because we had at my last job, we had a guy move to Hawaii and went remote there, and after he got his first paycheck there, he messaged me, "Hey, did we get pay cuts across the board or something?" I'm like, "Why? My paycheck is less." I'm like, "Yeah, you're in Hawaii. They probably charge you a state tax." Oh, right.
Yep. I had a friend who's in a who lives in a city that has a higher cost of living than Florida, and um, all their friends and stuff like that were getting these jobs that were like 10 20K more, whatever it may be, and they got a position, and it was technically supposed to be based out of Florida, and the assumption was they would move to Florida eventually. So the compensation was based on that. But because of COVID and everything, and a lot of companies now aren't going back to the office. They keep trying, like some keep trying, but it keeps getting postponed, or it's going to be limited basis, whatever. So now they're looking at not relocating at all, and because of that, they make a little less because the original offer was based on the
Florida,
expectation
right?
that they would be in Florida. Yeah. So I think it's a negotiation thing. But
Yeah.
I will say to your point earlier, you're like transparency. Transparency is big, and I think sometimes companies need to do a little reassessment. Like what is a fair value um, across the board? I know recently the company I work for did that, and I think it was great. Like,
Well,
because
and
I
then
knew people at same level who we weren't kind of on the same scale, and
right.
so they got a bump, and I thought it was much deserved.
Well, and it also depends on how the levels are set. I know some larger companies will set everyone at a certain level gets a certain price bracket, or they're in a certain price range, which is cool. And I think that's probably how the larger companies should do this. Um, but I think the companies that would really be hurt by the transparency kind of policy would be small shops, honestly. But then that's to each their own anyway. Um, so that's kind of neither here nor there. But one thing that you were saying about the HR department, so that's one of the things that for me for a really long time I always thought, oh, HR is there to help the employee. It wasn't until later on in my career that I realized, and I think a lot of people need to understand, and a lot of people need to realize is the HR department is not there to help the employee. It's to cover the company's butt. It is to help the company from anything the employees do or that the company does to the employee.
Well,
Period.
I think, yeah, and that's a little pessimistic, but there is a fair amount of truth there. Like the HR, I think, is kind of a balance of both. Like they're everyone's job, when you're working somewhere is to benefit the company. So like the company has to come
Granted.
first, right? It's totalitarianism, right? Like
Yeah.
one is not more important than the greater
Then
good,
the sum. Yeah.
than the sum, right? So I definitely like their job is, they work for the company, they're trying to better the company. But at the same time, they are there to help the employees because it's not necessarily like the company's going to get in trouble, but employees need, if you have a good HR department, they need some type of moderation. Like if you're having internal conflicts between resources, someone's doing something inappropriate or whatever, that having that there really helps.
Granted, and that's the key though and that's the key factor is a good HR. I think that we've all been around the block and enough to see the good and the bad.
What's really interesting is, and I'm interested to hear your guys' take on this one. Did you know, if you Google it, here, let me send it to you. The With the people changing jobs so much, it's not so far fetched when you look at it, because one of the other factors that's happened this year, COVID's still going on, different presidency, a lot of different world events, things like that. The U.S. inflation is up by 6.2%.
Yeah.
So that means if you got just a cost of living increase of say 3%, for like your yearly review or whatever, when your salary hopefully increases each year. If you only got like 3 to 5%, well, you actually lost money this year.
Yep.
This year,
Absolutely.
granted, if you're in a higher position, higher skill position, whatever it may be, you're probably making more. You're probably not hurting as much. But for your lower paid positions, that's a lot. I mean, you basically just kind of broke even. The cost of living increase really didn't cover the cost of living, at least for this year, right? So how do you guys feel about that? And do you think people are actually cognizant of that, or it's kind of a factor but not the leading factor?
No, I'm cognizant of the fact that I'm paying more money every time I go to the grocery store and get gas.
Yeah. It's very, very.
It's noticeable.
It's noticeable. I think there's a lot of people that are realizing it. I don't know that people understand what it really means and how it will really affect us in the long run. That there was, I was watching something the other day, and they were talking about, and forgive me, I can't remember what the years were, but they were talking about inflation and inflation rates, and if they were talking about the inflation. I think it was 1940 something, and they were talking about the average inflation rate from then to now, and they were saying that the dollar then versus the dollar now, the dollar was only worth 42 cents or something like that, now versus then.
Wow.
So think about that on a greater scale, as we continue to stack this inflation rate. It's only going to devalue the little bit of money that we each individually have. This goes back to even our past, what we were talking about last week with crypto and some of the new things that were passed. We need to start, not to get on the financial planning side of things, but we have to hedge our bets. We have to put our money, if you have any savings, put it in a place outside of cash.
Yep.
Because it's just going to be worth less in the
Yep.
long run. That's just how it's going to be.
Wheeler's way too quiet. I think he
Yeah.
might be tooting off camera or something.
No, definitely not. Well, I'm always off camera. Definitely not tooting.
He's
think you
always
would-
tooting off camera.
I think you would hear that on this mic.
I mean, we'll find out one of these nights.
No, I mean
No,
that's definitely a
okay.
concern. And the thing is, too, I mean, if companies try to compensate all their employees at the higher cost of living rate than what they normally do at the 3% and everything like that, would that potentially put the companies in a bind because they're suddenly paying more people more than what they normally do?
Absolutely.
I've worked at some companies. I worked at one company where our one raise one year was less than 2% because it was during because I used to work for a title insurance company and it was during the housing crisis. So I mean they didn't have a whole lot of stuff coming in, because people weren't prepared to buy houses and stuff like that. So I mean we got like a 2% raise. And the funny thing is, uh, it there was a tax break that had just ended like the year prior. So, and it was like a 2.5% tax break. So our 2% raise ended up being a negative because of the 2.5% tax break that expired. So we ended up losing 0.5% of money basically in that one year. Yeah, that sucked.
Yeah,
So-
But I mean, inflation puts everybody in bind, not just the employees, but also the employers of how
the
do they
employer, yeah,
handle this. And
absolutely.
unless the top levels are willing to take a pay cut or take less, of a pay raise each year to help the other employees, but I don't know how many
Yeah.
are willing to do that. There is
And
one
they're not
company
willing
that does it though. There's one company.
Yeah.
Have you heard of
There's-
what is it? Gravity? What is it called?
Gravity
Gravity
payments.
Payments.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Well,
the one where
they're
starting
the
salary for anybody is 70,000.
which has
And
been
he's
a
yeah,
awesome social experiment.
yeah. And I was reading, he said that the highest paid people like him and the other C levels is under 300,000. So
Yep.
the gap between the starting person and the highest person is like just over four times the salary. And I recently read they opened up a new office in Idaho, which has a much lower cost of living than Seattle, and they still start everybody there at 70,000 as well.
Wow.
And they
I
said
think
turnover has dropped dramatically, happiness has gone up. People are able to buy houses that weren't able to buy houses before and stuff like that. And he goes, I would gladly take less money if it makes everybody else at my company happier because they get more work done and their revenues have like tripled since he did it.
and people try harder. They're like, man, this
Yeah.
is a sweet gig, right? Like if I go anywhere else, I'm not getting as fairly compensated.
Yeah. And it makes them want to do better. It makes them want to see the company succeed because then they succeed.
Yep.
If you truly feel cared about, you put more effort into things. Period.
Yeah.
So speaking on that, cared about compensation, that kind of thing. One of the things I think that are under talked about and could sometimes maybe I see more value in it than others. I'm interested to hear what you guys say, but related to compensation, how do you guys view things like learning opportunities? So they pay like a business pays for training, pays for certification, gives you time on your work schedule to actually study for it, not just a hey, we'll pay for it, you do it on your own time, but like pay for it on your work schedule, but then also has good like health benefits and things like that, because a lot of times those are talked about in compensation packages, right? Like everyone looks at the salary number, but if I have a decent salary, I'm getting paid a little less, but then the company pays for 100% of my medical and does a bunch of other little things, it adds up, right? So how do you guys feel about some of those type of compensation type benefits? Like,
I'm
do you
totally
think
in favor of it. I keep pushing. I've pushed everywhere I've been for more of that because as employees grow and grow their skill set, they can help the companies grow. And everywhere I go, I always talk about it. I bring it up with my managers. I'm saying, we need to start doing more of this because it will only be beneficial to the company.
I also
Well,
think
I'm not only, but I mean, it will be very beneficial to the company if you can
I think
increase the skill set of everyone there.
depends on the stage of your life and the stage of your career you're in.
Well, some people don't want to learn more. That's fine.
Exactly. I think it's the stage of your life, depending, that you're in whenever you're thinking about these things. If you're in, I'll put it this way, and this is probably a bad way of putting it, but if you're an immature employee, you're not thinking about learning and developing. You're thinking about how much money can I make. You're thinking about how much can I do for me.
Right. But those people typically
Burn
won't
out quickly.
last very long. Yeah.
Exactly.
And then they'll start to mature and realize the value of
Correct.
improving themselves.
Correct. And that's kind of why I was saying it that way, is, an immature employee. Now, as you grow and mature, you will find the value in that. The problem that I see with that is a lot of companies talk a good game, and they will say all the right things, but they very rarely back it up.
Well, or they keep you so busy that you don't have time to do it. It's like when you're like looking over different stuff. You're like, oh, well, let's just add this as tech debt, and we'll come back to it later. You never come back to it.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. To be fair, though, software developers are inherently lazy, and not necessarily.
This coming from a DevOps.
Well, I started off as software, and I'm extra lazy, which is why I turned into DevOps. But one thing I've learned, especially being a DevOps, we're definitely lazy.
They are lazy. That's why they automate everything.
That is the core tenet of being a DevOps person.
It is the unspoken rule. But the one thing I've always learned is you can't let anyone get away with that, because the technical debt will come back later. No. Yeah. No. If we need it some way, we need to go ahead and do it now. Oh, well, it's going to put us a day or two past the due date.
Doesn't matter.
I'm like, do you watch Whose Line Is It Anywhere? Whose Line Is It Anyways? Points don't matter. It's all made up. Like, the dates don't matter. They're all made up. Someone just said that they want it. I'm telling you right now, if you go back to them and say, hey, we need 2 days longer, and we set ourselves up for less problems, they'll manage. They'll figure it out.
Yep.
And I basically just don't let them get away with it. And that's the only way, because otherwise I've had it multiple times where like, oh yeah, we're going to break this up into, microservices or add these testing or whatever. Never happens. Like, the ticket's still sitting there. Like, it's like you either do it at the start or it's probably not going to happen.
Negotiation is your best friend as a developer, a scrum master, wherever you're at. Negotiation is your best friend, because you've got to negotiate yourself out of those kind of holes.
But I had to call flag on the play on Wheeler, because never do they go back and look at technical debt.
Oh no, that is.
So not unless they're slow.
Hard.
We've actually been kind of doing that recently, because we have a lot of contractor devs, and our and work is kind of slowed down to the point where we don't have stories ready for them. So to help bide our time, we're making protect that.
You gotta value that dollar somehow. You're paying for them anyway.
Yep.
But
so
to you guys,
some of it.
Well,
and actually, we've had some instances where the tech debt has become a necessity. So then we have to pull it out of the tech debt bucket and start working on it.
Nice. But to your guys' answers to the whole like upskilling, learning stuff, I think personally, I've always found it to be a huge benefit, similar to you guys.
Absolutely.
And I think, and I'm fortunate, I've been at a company, I'm at a company now that has a big belief in upskilling and gives people time, gives them the resources, things like that. But also upskilling for things you want to think about, right? Like a lot of times when you say upskilling or learning, people just immediately think of whatever they're involved with, right? So developers would think about learning a new language, framework, whatever. cloud technology, something like that. But also, I think it's important that, kind of the HR thing. Like if you have a good HR, they're going to try to also upskill you in certain leadership qualities, such as emotional intelligence, empathy,
Right.
communication skills, different things like that. Because even if you're not in a leadership role, I think everyone just in general learning how to better communicate, talk to each other, have empathy versus sympathy, understand certain things, have a safe work environment. I think that helps a lot as far as people's development and productivity as well. And that's like a huge, like, you don't talk about it like when you're like, you can only get so much information from an interview, right? And you can only get so much from an offer letter. But once you get in there and you can actually see, that's where it's like, oh wow, like I would take X amount of dollars less to be here over there any day because of all these other benefits. Like I feel like it more than exceeds that dollar amount.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's been a lot of times that I wish that I had more knowledge in certain areas outside of my core tenants, but I didn't have the opportunity because it wasn't available to me. And honestly, if I had the opportunity, I would absolutely take it. I think that's a huge benefit from any company. So heck yeah, I think that would be all.
Well, maybe because we're running out of time tonight, but maybe
We
that's one
are.
of our follow-up podcasts. So any
I think
viewers
so.
out there, um, what's something you'd like to hear as far as an employer's benefits, maybe challenges or pivots in your technical careers? I think we all have some good stories around that. Don't forget to like and subscribe, which we'll talk about again. Don't worry. But drop a comment. Let us know maybe a subject you're interested in, and maybe how one of the three of us have overcome that. And we can
Yeah,
definitely bring that up on another session.
absolutely. So have we? So what else have we heard about this week? Anything cool? Oh, have y'all seen the new? So the new Spider-Man trailer's out. Have you seen the new
Yes,
Spider-Man trailer?
I,
Have you
I
seen?
saw that.
I did not. Don't ruin it, Wheeler.
Okay. Well, have you
BK
seen the
Dub.
mysterious punching lizard?
No.
No.
What? Wait,
So in the
you're not
Is
talking about the
this
Brazil,
Spider-Man trailer anymore, right?
yes, I am.
is this in the
In the
Keys?
in the what?
The Keys, the Florida Keys.
There's a
Florida
No,
lot of
man.
weird things in the
no,
Florida Keys.
no,
I mean, you
no.
can see my confusion here.
In the Brazil version of the Spider-Man trailer, there is a scene, and I'm not going to spoil it for you, Duffy. You can go look it up. There is a portion of the scene that where the lizard character is looks like he's being hit by a invisible character. So there's been going around saying, who is this invisible character that's hitting the lizard?
So
They're saying,
I need to watch this trailer in different languages now, or
apparently,
different kind. Oh
Basically.
man,
yes. So
Or just wait for
apparently
the movie.
there's some people saying it could be another Spider-Man. There's some people saying it could be Venom. Some
Could be
people
Miles.
saying it could be the not Falcon. Michael Keaton's character. What's his name?
Vulture.
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 Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, it
So
could be Miles Morales.
there's other people saying it could be Miles Morales.
I
Or
mean,
depending, if you watch the cartoon, Spider-Man got advanced enough that he had stealth tech.
well, and they are
No,
they are
they were showing
introducing
Spider-Man.
they are introducing more of the multiverse and
Could be Spider-Ham.
Miles. Oh, I would love to see Spider-Ham.
That would be awesome. I would love Spider-Ham.
It
And,
could
Spider-Ham, fourth wall breaking.
That would be great.
I'll watch that movie in the theater 10 times.
I would. Yes, I would rent out the theater to watch that.
Yeah.
it could also be Spider-Gwen.
Spider-Gwen, I think, would be good too.
If you're gonna
I don't know much about the character itself, but the design I really like. I really like the Spider-Gwen design.
You like
but
her boobs.
if you're gonna introduce the multiverse,
Which they are.
and you're gonna
It's
bring
already been
in.
introduced.
I know, but I'm just saying you're gonna introduce it. You're gonna bring in the other Spider-Man, right? Why wouldn't you go ahead and
Spider-Man.
introduce? Yeah, why wouldn't you introduce Spider-Gwen? Like, the comics are blowing up right now about it. I don't know if they have the rights to it, kind of like how Fox had the rights to any new mutants that were created.
Yeah, because I wonder
that deal.
Because I wonder if Sony still has all the Spider-Verse stuff. That's why they're doing
They
another
do.
Into the Spider-Verse movie, animated movie. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know what the deal is with Marvel and which characters they're allowed to use and which ones they aren't allowed to use.
Well, technically, it's a Sony movie.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but depending on their contract.
But it's a Sony movie that takes place in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
No,
as opposed to a Sony movie that takes place in the Sony whatever
This is
universe.
a Sony universe.
Not the Spider-Man movies. That's why they have Iron Man and Avengers Tower and all that other crap.
I don't know.
Yeah. Spider-Man is in the MCU. Morbius, Venom, all those things are in the Sony universe.
Point.
Yeah.
Well, but then why do they show Spider-Man in the Morbius trailer?
No, there's something I want to bring up, but I can't because it's
spoiler
territory.
Don't do it. Go away. Don't spoil it for our audience.
I can't. Well, it's not about Morbius or about Spider-Man. It's about one of the other movies.
It's about Venom. Which, by the way, Venom, Carnage, Let There Be Carnage comes out on to streaming. I'm not sure what platform. November the 23rd.
Okay, so you guys need to watch it so I can talk about the spoilers.
Yes, we will.
So, I think we have to give the month. The movie has to be out at least a month before.
Well, whatever, fine.
But before we have to,
can we talk about the spoiler after the Spider-Man movie? Then
have either of you seen the trailers or started Cowboy Bebop on Netflix? The live action. Not
I don't have Netflix right now. I'm waiting for the next season of Stranger Things. And two, I never really got into Cowboy Bebop when it was an anime. So,
blasphemy.
Yeah. I've heard some not so good things.
I've heard not good things about both of you, but I still hang out. How dare you?
I mean, you're the anime guy, though. I'm not anime.
That is a fact. But it was really well done. It's not like a voiced over, like, the words are out of sync with the facial movements and stuff. Yeah. Like, it's not like one of those. And it's actually really well, like, directed and edited and stuff like that. So it's actually pretty good. Now, if you don't like the storyline, well, then you just don't like the storyline. Like, there's not much you can do about that. But as far as, like, overall quality of it, like, they do a really good job making the live action. I'm, like, halfway through it already. It just came out yesterday. But it does a really good job of, like, resonating with the original anime. And I think they did a really good job with, like, the character selections. Like, first episode, it took me a minute. Second episode, all right, I was kind of feeling it. Like, I kind of got used to the differences because, it's such a classic anime that most people have probably seen it or seen clips of it multiple times throughout the years, right? So it just took me a minute, but now I'm accustomed to, like, the faces to the character, and it's pretty good. I'm enjoying it a lot.
Yeah,
have you guys seen the recent run of, like, platform brawler games? So a couple months ago they had Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl, which was Nickelodeon characters past and present and stuff like that, which is actually kind of fun. And Warner Brothers just announced their platform brawler, which is free to play, called Multiverses, that has, like, Batman from Batman the Animated Series. It's got Shaggy, Bugs Bunny, Arya Stark from Game of Thrones, and Finn the Human from Adventure Time, things like that. And it's, and they're getting, like, the original voices Tom and Jerry's gonna be in there. Like
Well,
they
they
got
can't
like
get the original voice of Shaggy.
they got Matthew Lillard, the guy that
Yeah.
did it in the live action movie. They got
Yeah.
Kevin Conroy, who was the original Batman the Animated Series voice. They got Massey Williams, who played Arya Stark in Game of Thrones, to do that voice and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, and it's going to be free to play. So I'm really interested in playing that just to check it out because I'm like, I was talking to someone at work. I was like, how fun would it be to have Arya Stark beating up on Shaggy? And he goes, "This is the strangest conversation I've ever had."
It's about par for the course.
But then he goes, "I'm game for it."
This is weird. Tell me more.
Yeah. So
I'm a little bit creeped out, but intrigued.
Yeah. It's neat to see like these other platform brawlers kind of stepping up now that Smash Brothers is wrapping up and everything. So yeah, that'll be fun to play. Get a little multiplayer action going on.
Well, I think that wraps it up for tonight, guys. So I think you need anything else before we wrap it up?
No, appreciate everyone. Drop some comments below. Let us know what you're interested in hearing about, or drop us an article. We're happy to tackle it in our next session.
Let us know where we're wrong. Blame us.
And where we can improve. Help us get better.
Oh, Lord, yes, please. All right, guys. Well, now it's to you guys. You all know what to do down at the bottom. Subscribe, like us, share us, and comment. And if you're listening to us on your chosen podcast platform, please share, like, and do whatever you need to do there. And we will talk to y'all later. And
subscribe to my YouTube channel.
Go see BK Dub on his YouTube channel. Go check out Duffy's The DevOps Life blog. And I am Shellbot. I don't do anything, so I will talk to y'all later.
You do the podcast. You do this. This is enough.
I do this. This is my.
You do all the editing. You do all this stuff for us.
Yeah, you do things sometimes.
I do things. I do things. They're secret things. They're weird things.
They're random things.
They're random.
Random things.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, guys. We'll see you later. Bye.
Bye, everyone.